Russian media are already loudly proclaiming the successes of Putin's army, claiming that the occupiers have entered Suja. But what is really happening there? According to eyewitness accounts, the Russians are literally wiping the city off the face of the earth along with its residents. What are Putin's troops doing in the Kursk region right now? Terrifying details in the report.
For the last 6 months, part of the Kursk region has been under the control of the armed forces of Ukraine. And the Russian army has been trying to push out the Ukrainian military all this time. The Kremlin was shelling its own towns and villages with Grad rockets.
Money for Yakov. Subtitles by Dima Torzov.
In 6 months, these territories have turned into scorched earth. Mariupol, Bakhmut, and now Suja and the surrounding villages. Part of the Kursk region has turned into occupied Donbass. This is, for example, the railway station in the city of Suja after the Russian artillery shelling. Broken windows, charred roofs. Nearby you can see burned structures and damaged houses. And around, hungry dogs are running, left without owners. With massive strikes, the Russian army destroyed not only buildings, but also killed the local population. The surviving civilians of conscription age are immediately sent by the Russian soldiers to assault units.
You two are conscripts, right? What's your last name? Mother's, yes. And Dad? You? We're definitely going to get you out with a contract in the 1st Assault Battalion, right?
These destructions are a direct result of the actions of the Russian military. The special military operation is going according to plan. The Russians are effectively recording the damage they inflict on their own territory on camera. Here's a post from one of the Mindi ZVN cows about the entry of the Russian army into Suja.
The paratroopers, the 11th Brigade and the Special Forces, one of the 2nd Brigade, are raising flags in the center of Suja. The city was under occupation for 215 days.
The video drone shows that the city is completely destroyed. When the USSR entered Suja more than 6 months ago, there were no destructions. And now the Ukrainian forces are leaving the town, as there is practically not a stone left standing.
Well, all the areas that gradually came under the control of the Russian troops saw that they were taken, almost without a fight. The same goes for Suja. Yesterday, there were video recordings geolocated showing Russian troops on the eastern outskirts of the city. Today, we see again on the opposite screen the Russian troops, and once again, there are no footage of battles. So for us, this once again, as we stated a few days ago, indicates a systematic retreat of the Ukrainian forces.
Suja is just one of dozens of examples of how Russian cities reflect what the Russian army brings with it. After the liberation of Suja from the armed forces of Ukraine, journalists from federal channels arrived there immediately, blaming the Ukrainian military for everything.
Another store looted by the militants. As soon as they entered the city, they immediately started clearing the shelves, sweeping away, making mocking videos here. They were sitting behind the cash register.
In the 4th year of the so-called special military operation, the Russian army has found itself in a situation where it is forced to carry out airstrikes on cities within its own territory. The townspeople who remained in Suja were not evacuated, which caused a wave of indignation and criticism towards the Russian authorities. Now, as these territories are once again coming under the control of the Kremlin, it's impossible to live there, as the Russian army has leveled everything to the ground, showing no mercy to either their own or others.
Who is behind the scenes of Russian politics, planting insane ideas in the mind of the Russian dictator? The shocking truth about Kreml's gray eminences. After all, it's unlikely that Putin could come up with this nonsense on his own. So who is shaping the strategy and pushing Russia into the abyss of chaos? Who can influence the dictator today? Details in the story.
Who is behind the scenes of Russian politics, planting insane ideas in the mind of the Russian dictator?
There are no officials in my immediate circle, and I hope it never will be. They are all colleagues, but I don't get close to anyone, and I don't plan to get close.
Hidden behind the official figures and loud statements are those who shape Russia's strategy and direction. Their names are rarely heard in public, but their influence is felt everywhere.
There's a saying, it is the entourage that makes the king. The people surrounding the supreme ruler shape his ideology and influence the decisions he makes. They serve almost like a shadow government and have a huge influence.
The decisive role in the attack on Ukraine. In 2022, there were paranoid friends of the president of Russia, among whom was Nikolai Patrushev, the head of the Security Council and Putin's colleague from the KGB since 1975.
Starting from the 90s, Patrushev will follow in Putin's footsteps. In 98, he will replace him as the head of the main control directorate of the president. And just a year later, he will take the position of the director of the FSB.
Putin's colonel knew the post.
I just had a meeting with the colonel.
Nikolai Patrushev, a true confidant of Putin, a friend since their time working together in the Leningrad KGB, has obsessive thoughts about a Western attack.
As for the conflict in Ukraine and what's happening there, the belief among everyone, and everyone knows this, is that it wasn't the people of Ukraine who organized it. The people of Ukraine are against this. They are being intimidated, forced to go down this path. The US organized it, just like the conflict in 2008 with Georgia.
Patrushev has always been known for his talkativeness and his noticeable authority in explaining the official policies of the Kremlin, which once again confirms the trust Putin has placed in him.
But now Patrushev has essentially been sent into retirement. In May 2024, Putin made him his assistant for shipbuilding. The position is clearly smaller than the previous ones, but there's no need to worry about the fate of Nikolai Platonovich.
A true patriot of the Putin clan and KGB traditions, Alexei Dyumin. Previously, he was the former head of the Tula region, and now he is truly a close ally of Putin.
Even now, many still see Dyumin as a potential successor to Putin. He is absolutely devoted to his boss, carrying out his most delicate assignments, and was even ready to sacrifice himself for his patron.
He stood next to Putin at the beginning of his presidency, being the one who ensured the security of the head of state. Today, Dyumin is one of the key assistants to the president, overseeing the defense industry. He is the one referred to as the person who played an important role in the annexation of Crimea.
Putin gave him a position closer to himself by appointing him as president, the president's assistant. Now Dyumin oversees issues related to the defense industry and sports, and he also holds the position of Secretary of the Security Council. Not long ago, he was also included in the Security Council.
He doesn't seek publicity, but it is his decisions that impact the security and defense capability of Russia. He is not just an executor, he is a strategist, a person behind many of Russia's defense initiatives.
Dyumin unconditionally follows everything Putin says and enjoys his great trust. And in his role as the president's assistant, he addresses many important issues.
In May 2024, State Duma Deputy Elena Yampolskaya was appointed as the president's advisor on cultural issues. Previously, she headed the Culture Committee in the State Duma and is known for her initiatives to protect the Russian language and traditional values. Elena Yampolskaya. Once, she was just a simple journalist and theater critic. She wrote books and headed the newspaper Culture. And in 2018, she headed the State Duma Committee on Culture.
By this time, Yampolskaya had already managed to make her mark with her controversial views and statements.
As the chair of the State Duma Committee on Culture, Yampolskaya actively supports Russia's aggression against Ukraine, justifying the actions of the army by referencing the protection of cultural values and historical heritage.
Yampolskaya became the president's advisor last year. Now she is putting her nonsense into Putin's head. And on the side, she writes denunciations and puts forward new repressive initiatives.
You won't see her on the front lines, but it is her statements and initiatives that shape the cultural justification for military aggression. For such activity, Yampolskaya ended up on the sanctions lists of the USA, the UK, and the EU.